Hi.
Hi, Brian.
Hi.
Angela Carone.
Hi, Brian Selznick. Come on in.
Nice to see you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Brian Selznick writes and illustrates his books in a studio in this mid-century condo in La Jolla.
Would you like to see the kitchen first?
Before we get to his workspace, we stop off a few places.
So it has this nice stove that disappears.
It's not really the kitchen he wants to show
You
me.
can hear the sound of the future from 1963.
It's the original Frigidaire stove that came with the place. Selznick is an enthusiast for things that have a story or a sense of history.
And I collect snow globes from everywhere I travel.
Eventually, we find our way into the studio. It is in this room where Selznick spent time working on the invention of Hugo Cabret, which has now been translated into 35 languages. It won many awards,
Who are you? Hugo.
and in 2011, it became an Academy Award-winning film directed by Martin Scorsese. His new book is called The Marvels.
The Marvels is two stories. One follows 5 generations of a family of actors from 1766 to 1900. And the second story takes place in 1990 about a boy named Joseph who runs away from boarding school to look for an uncle who he's never met.
Selznick spends over 3 years working on each book. The worlds he creates for his characters dovetail with his own interests.
But The Marvels is the first book that is really about the theater for me. And it's really about my love for the theater and everything that I've learned from the theater I tried to put into this story.
The Marvels was also inspired by a special house in London, the Dennis Seavers house.
Dennis Seavers was a California boy, grew up in Escondido. His parents owned a gas station. And as a child, he fell in love with England. Eventually, he purchased a derelict house in a derelict area of London called Spitalfields.
Seavers turned the house into a time machine by creating 18th and 19th century worlds inside the rooms of the house. Today, it's like a cross between a museum and a theater set.
It becomes essentially a gentleman's room.
Now, when you visit the Dennis Seavers house, the idea is that the family who lives there in the 18th or 19th century has just stepped out. So there's hot tea on the table, there's food cooking in the kitchen, some of the beds are unmade because people have just gotten up. And so it's this really uncanny, full sensory experience.
Selznick created a similar house in The Marvels.
It seemed like the right place for the characters in The Marvels to discover who they are, who they want to be, who they want to be with.
The first story in The Marvels, the one about the family of actors, it's told entirely in drawings, 400 pages of drawings.
His Majesty the King.
Selznick relies on his love of movies to guide how he draws.
Don't you want to marry me?
I'm going to marry Melanie.
I've loved movies ever since I was a kid, I think especially because I'm distantly related to David O. Selznick, who produced Gone with the Wind and King Kong and Rebecca and all of these amazing movies. Even though he's from the Hollywood movie-making side of the Selznicks and I'm from the New Jersey dry cleaning side of the Selznicks, but we are related. The drawings are very much supposed to echo and parallel what movies do and the way cameras tell their story. And so, especially when I started working on Hugo, it was like, how do I combine what the camera's doing in these movies? There's panning, there's zooming where you go close up on something. You can have a abrupt edit from one scene to the next. And so trying to take all of that and thinking about what the art form of the book is capable of.
As he's working, the finished drawings go on this wall, kind of like storyboards for a film. The wall can also be intimidating.
The worst days are the first day because it's one drawing and then I look at the rest of the blank wall and I'm like, oh my God, there's so much to do. And then the second worst day is the middle because that's when you realize you have to do all of that again.
The settings in Selznick's books could not be more different from book to book, but there is a similar theme running through all of them.
When I finished making Hugo, a reader came up to me and said, I love that this book is about how we make our own families, about how we gather people around us who make us safe.
That theme found its culmination in The Marvels, Like all of his books, The Marvels has a very specific, idiosyncratic universe with fully realized characters. But at its core is a familiar set of emotions.
The need for us to find our people, to find the people who understand us, who relate to us, who can just understand us in a way that we feel like no one else can. Like that is something everyone experiences.
Angela Carone, KPBS News.